Hey, welcome. Today we're diving into a really wild idea, one that takes an entire state and turns it into something, well, something mythical. We're going to explore how Colorado, when you look at it through this really unique lens, becomes a living, breathing factory.
Okay, so let's just jump right in. I want you to forget everything you think you know about factories. We're not talking cars. We're not talking microchips. Just imagine for a second a factory floor that's 1,000 miles wide, where the machinery is actual mountains and the raw materials are ancient history.
You heard that right. Dragons. But look, these aren't the dragons from your old storybooks. There's something totally new. These incredible techno-organic creatures forged from a crazy blend of geology, fossils, and folklore. And that's the core idea we're unpacking today.
So you're probably wondering, how on earth does an idea this big actually hold together?
Well, it's all built on a conceptual framework called ARTESEROSTEK.
I know, it's a unique term, and we're about to break down exactly what it means and how it works.
Okay, so ARTESEROSTEK, and that name is a blend of art, technology, and ecology. It's not saying there are literal dragons flying around the Rockies. No. What it's proposing is that this specific combination of Colorado's landscape, its incredibly deep fossil record, and its rich history of storytelling, all of that stuff acts like a factory. A virtual one that constantly turns out the idea of dragons in our collective imagination.
Right, so every factory needs a power source, an engine. And for this one, it is absolutely monumental. We are talking about the Rocky Mountains themselves. This quote from the guy who came up with the framework, Franco Arteseros, is so important. The mountains aren't just pretty scenery in the background. They are the active driving force. They are the engine of this whole operation. So how do they work as an engine? Well, think about it. It all starts with that raw geological power. Tectonic plates grinding together, ancient volcanoes erupting. That energy literally acts as a forge where myth and physical matter just collide, shaping a landscape that feels, alive. And all that raw physical power generates this continuous flow of inspiration that feeds right into the factory's creative circuits. All right, so we've got our power source, but what about the designs for the product? What are the blueprints? For that, this factory looks deep into the earth, to plans left behind millions of years ago.
I just love this idea from Arteseros. You've got these incredible fossils of dinosaurs, like the Stegosaurus and the Allosaurus. They're not just dusty old things in a museum. No way. In the Dragon Factory, they become techno-organic components, like actual parts on a conceptual assembly line.
And get this, the translation from an ancient bone to a modern beast is super direct. Look at this table. You can see how the spiked plates of a Stegosaurus become these awesome industrial dragon scales. And the massive, powerful jaws of an Allosaurus, they get reimagined as the source of fiery breath. The fossils aren't just inspiration, they are the literal blueprints and parts for these new creatures. Okay, so we've got power and we've got blueprints. But any machine needs some programming, right? Something to give its creation meaning. In our Dragon Factory, that programming is made out of stories. The whole factory is wired with two main circuits. On one side, you have these ancient Native American legends of powerful snake-like beings that are deeply connected to the land, the water, and the sky. These stories paint dragons as these fundamental forces of nature. And then, on the other side, you have frontier mythology, all those settler tales of mysterious creatures out there in a wild, untamed landscape. This is what layers on what the source material calls an industrial imagination. And there's actually a name for this process of weaving all these different stories together, blending the ancient with the industrial. It's called narrative engineering. It's the very conscious act of using stories to build a brand new modern myth that still feels like it's deeply rooted in the history of the land itself. Okay, power, check. Blueprints, check. Programming, check. It's time to head down to the factory floor and meet the workers on the assembly line. But these aren't your typical factory workers. Nope, they are Colorado's own artists, writers, and creators. These dragon engineers follow a pretty clear process. First up, they pull their inspiration from all those raw materials we've been talking about, the geology and the cultural folklore. Next, they use those fossil blueprints for the core design. And then comes the really cool part, the assembly, where they blend the organic with the mechanical. Finally, they release these amazing prototypes out into the world through their art. And the results of this whole process are just stunning. You get prototypes like this. Dragons with wings that aren't made of leather but are powered by these intricate, steaming gears. It's a perfect blend of biology and industry. And their bodies aren't covered in skin, but in these tough, interlocking plates of riveted metal, maybe even glowing with some kind of captured energy. And their breath? It isn't just fire. It's this torrent of pure energy, glowing with the fierce, bright light of neon. This right here is the unmistakable techno-organic look of the Colorado dragon. So the factory has done its job. It's produced its dragons, but you know what? The story doesn't end there. These creatures are then released into this dynamic, living system. And like Franco Arteseros puts it, this is not a finished project. Not at all. The dragon ecology of Colorado is constantly changing. Every time a new fossil is discovered, every time a new story is told, every new piece of art that's made, it adds to and modifies the whole system. It's alive. The entire state basically becomes this huge living lab. Think about these creative hotspots in places like Denver and Boulder, where festivals and workshops actually become the testing grounds for new dragon prototypes. This is where they're released into our culture, and they become these powerful symbols of resilience, innovation, and just pure wonder. So here's what it all boils down to. This is the crucial point. These manufactured dragons are way more than just cool-looking art. They're artifacts that create this powerful conversation between a really deep prehistoric past and an innovative technological future. They are literally the place where history and imagination collide. And that leaves us with one final question for you. This ARTESEROSTEK framework, it gives us a totally new way to look at a landscape and see the stories it's telling. So take a look around you. Think about it. What are the raw materials, the geology, the history, the folklore of your home? What myths is your landscape creating right now?